Hello, and welcome to today's episode of The Ways of the World, where we focus upon a different country and culture and discover the different ways of the world through the lenses of Villanova students and faculty. These Villanovans have studied abroad and are here to share their experiences. I'm your host, Ava Petrosky. Today's episode will be a bit different. Instead of just focusing on one place, I have with me a very seasoned traveler who will speak to us about all her travel endeavors. So I have with me here Senior Director of the Writing Center, Professor Mary Beth Simmons. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for asking me to stop by, Ava.
Absolutely. Okay, so tell me, where in the world have you been?
Well, not as many places as some of my friends. I've got a dear friend who just logged his 120th country. I'm not that fortunate, but I have been to Cameroon in West Africa. I've been to France, England, Scotland, Ireland, Portugal, Spain, Italy, mostly Europe.
Mm-hmm. So what was your first abroad travel experience?
Cameroon, West Africa, as a Peace Corps volunteer. Okay. I had never been out of the country.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so what made you want to join the Peace Corps?
I grew up in a very provincial central Illinois town. It was a great little cornfield of a place, surrounded by a lot of rich farmland. The population of my town was called Clinton, Illinois. Population was 8,000. And I knew the whole time I was growing up there, I needed to travel. I loved growing up in Illinois, but I had wanderlust. And so the easiest way after I graduated from college was, the Peace Corps it's free travel. It's also a job, which I happen to love, but it was, I felt this need to travel and a need to serve as well.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me more about your experience in Cameroon?
Yeah, I taught English as a second language, and it was interesting when I was being recruited. The recruiter said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Oh, I want to build schools. I want to build wells. I wanted to build things." And she said, "Well, with your English degree, you're going to be teaching." I said, "I really don't want to teach." My mother was an educator, and I was 21, and I didn't want to do what she did. And they said, "That's the only way you're going to go." And then I fell in love with teaching, and I've been doing it. I've been teaching now since 1989.
Wow. So what's your favorite memory that you had back in Cameroon?
The people, meeting the people, being a stranger in a strange land, being very vulnerable and being open to a lot of new experiences.
Mm-hmm. So how was it to have never left the country and then travel almost halfway across the world and live there for a significant amount of time?
2 years, yeah. It was a shock, but it was a great shock because I was in a wonderful cohort. We were a group of 59 young volunteers, and so we were trained together for the first 3 months, and then we were sent to our locations. And so I had a good grounding in the culture before I went to my village, and I was in a very, very, very remote village. It looked like a snapshot out of National Geographic. I loved it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how did you navigate through language barriers? Because I'm assuming you taught English as a second language. Not everyone there spoke English.
No, even though the two official languages of Cameroon are French and English, in my village, a lot of people didn't even speak French. They spoke their patois. Fulfulde was a main one. And I never learned that because it was a tonal language. My village was used to Peace Corps volunteers. We had representatives there for about 10 years. So there was a lot of, the language barrier. Say in the marketplace, Wednesday was market day when I would do my grocery shopping. There's a lot of body language, a lot of, fingers being held up. And I did learn enough of the patois to buy my potatoes and my lettuce, etc. And I also had friends who would take me to the market. And I would speak to them in French, and they would negotiate for me. But it was, that's one of the beauties of travel too. It's like it's a barrier, but it can be an adventure. The language can be a barrier, but it can be an adventure, and a really humorous adventure as well. If you've got the right spirit for it.
So, are you fluent in French?
Oh no. No. In fact, this is so funny. when I got to Cameroon, we did a language test. I had had 2 years of French in college. I think that it was on a 1 to 4 scale. I was a 1 when I got there. When I left, I was a 1+.
There you go.
I didn't even make it to 2. And that was because I started learning a language so late in life. I really, really encourage young people to start taking language classes like really early.
Yeah.
Because, something in the brain hits when you're 14, you're really self-conscious. You don't want to make mistakes. So I started learning French at 18,
Right.
It's a beautiful language. I can still speak the basics when I travel in France. And I always tell them, in French, I speak like a baby. And the French usually say, yes, but we understand you. But it's fun.
Right. Now, what is the greatest lesson that you take away from your experience in the Peace Corps?
I'm still learning it. Patience. Patience. Flexibility. Rolling with the punches. I mean, I hate that cliche, but, this was before, I think about this so much. This is before cell phones. This is before laptops. Now you join the Peace Corps, you take your cell phone, you get a laptop.
Right.
Every village has Wi-Fi. And what I would have given for that, but I also wouldn't have had the same experience that I did have.
Right. So were you able to contact home?
Yes, there was a telephone about 200 miles away that volunteers had access to.
Okay.
And it was a Peace Corps house, and I would travel there maybe once every 6 or 7 weeks, and I would pre-plan with my parents, okay, the next time I'm going to be in Marawa, call this number at this time. And it was a telephone tree. All of our parents would call one another, and it worked out. But I was there, I think, 6 weeks before I heard my mother's voice, and it was one of the best phone calls of my life.
Aw.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. 2 years is a really long time.
2 years is a really long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're a kid, you're really a kid at 22. You're an adult. But, creature comforts when you're ripped out of that willingly. I took myself out willingly. There were just, every day was some new learning experience. But I would have to say patience and flexibility.
Yeah. If you could redo one aspect of your experience in Cameroon, would you change anything? And if so, why?
I'd throw myself into the language more. I would have tried to integrate a bit more linguistically and culturally. I would go to the dances. I would go to the festivities. If a student would invite me over to their house to have palm wine out of a gourd, I'd go. I did all of that stuff. But I was, I think I held back with the language, and that's my own, shortcoming.
Right.
And I knew it then, and I know it now.
So I'm curious, I want to talk more about maybe these festivals or dances that you participated in. What was the culture like in Cameroon?
Well, during training, I guess I'd been in Cameroon about a month, and at our main training site, they said, okay, next weekend, we're going to go into the village of Bafoussam, and everyone is going to stay with a family. So we had these family stays, and we were all kind of freaking out, but also really excited. And, some of us were just nervous, like, and they said, everyone's been vetted, don't worry. And so I stayed with this family. I had a sweet little hut where I stayed, and hung out with the mom in the kitchen and cooked with her and cooked with the kids. And then that was a Friday. And then Saturday, there was a knock on my door, and I opened it up, and it was the father, and he said, this all in French, he said, get ready, I'm going to take you to a funeral. And I was like, okay. And they're called cry dies.
Oh, wow.
And it was this, and I asked him who it was. It had been a friend of his in the village, and he was kind of an important man. He had been on, like city council. And it was this huge party in the middle of the city. And all the family members of the man, they shaved their heads, and they danced, and they cried. And they held pictures of him, framed pictures. And it was just, lots of drums and lots of instruments, lots of dancing, very festive in a very respectful way. And then we went to went to we'd call it a wake here, right? We went to a party, a gathering afterwards for food and drink, and they put all of the chairs around the perimeter of this grand ballroom, and I sat there. My dad had disappeared, so I was like, what am I doing, right? And I was just trying to chat with people, and then an individual came over and said, would you like some champagne? Sure. So he poured me a glass, and he put the bottle down next to me, and I toasted with the person next to me, and I took a sip. And I'm 21, 22. But I was like, this is the best champagne I've ever had in my life. What is this? I pick up the bottle. It was Dom Perignon. And I thought I was gonna die. I couldn't wait to tell my mother that story. So there was it was just a beautiful kind of explosive day for me as a young person, seeing how other cultures mourn and celebrate.
Right.
And now we call them, we don't say funeral as much anymore here as we say a celebration of life. And that's what I was seeing, in West Africa in the late 80s. And I thought, this is a way to do it. I grew up in a very kind of buttoned up Protestant family. Where you didn't dance and you didn't cry at funerals, stiff upper lip, right? No, it was a great day.
Yeah, that is so interesting.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Very culturally immersive. Did you have any other experiences where you just felt totally immersed in the culture of West Africa?
That's a good question. I mean, there were times when I would take trips with my Peace Corps friends, and we did a safari, we'd hike, we'd go to the waterfalls. The nature was just stunning. It was just beautiful there. It was pure. It was untouched. I had a very good friend, Eugenie, in my village. She was a primary school teacher, and she had 4 little kids, and I would spend every Saturday morning at their house. I would make banana pancakes, and then I'd get on my little orange bicycle, and I'd bike to their house, and I would give them banana pancakes, and we would watch Looney Tunes. She had a television in the village. There were only like 3 people who had TVs. Okay. And my friend had one because her husband was the prison warden, so they were upper class. And we would watch cartoons, and then they had a wonderful, terrible American soap opera called Santa Barbara. So we'd watch that. It was dubbed in French. It was just, I would spend, that was my best friend in the village. Yeah. So I felt like I got a lot of quality time with her. I'd cook with her. Yeah. I would sit with her when her girlfriends would come over and they'd all braid their hair. Yeah. I mean, that was hours and hours and hours. And, what I loved is that the women of the village, that was their bonding time when they'd go to the well and get water in buckets and carry them back to their homes. And when they'd get together and do one another's hair and cook and gossip. It was wonderful. Yeah.
What was some of the food that they were cooking?
Oh, fufu and jama, beans and rice. The beans and rice were just amazing. A lot of fish. Yeah. Whatever was local, whatever they could make, but a lot of just looks like orange spongy cake, but it was a bean cake. It's been years since I've thought about it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
So now I'm curious, post Peace Corps, you've done a lot of travel since. So then what was your journey after that? After
Peace Corps, I did grad school and did not do a lot of traveling during grad school. Started traveling again really in the late 1990s, early 2000s. Went to, and just started going to Europe a lot. England in particular. Yeah. I'm an Anglophile, I'll admit it. I love everything about the UK. Yeah. I'm going back this summer, going back to Scotland. I haven't been since like 2002, so I'm excited to go back there. Nice. Yeah.
So what's your favorite part of England?
I'm not going to say London, though I do love it. I'm bananas about Canterbury. It's a sweet little village. Beyond the cathedral, there's so much history there. There's so much culture. It's a beautiful landscape. I like the people. It feels like a very manageable city to me.
Yeah.
I'd love to live there someday, but getting all the proper paperwork it's difficult.
Yeah. Do you see a big difference between Scotland and maybe the rest of England?
I'd hesitate to respond to that until I go this summer.
Right.
I mean, I didn't see a huge difference the last time I was there, but it's been 20 years.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to going back.
Right. Now, you do have plans to also lead a new study abroad program.
I do.
This upcoming
I'm not
summer.
leading it. I'm
co-leading
the
it.
co-leader.
Yes, a co-leader. So could we talk a little bit more about, and this isn't your first study abroad program. You had another one in Prague.
I did. I ran the Prague program for about 10 years.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was fabulous.
Okay, so let's go in chronological order. Let's talk about Prague.
The program began, it was started by a former dean in arts and sciences at Villanova, and she could no longer run it. So one day we were having lunch and we were chatting about a number of things, and she just said, kind of randomly, who are some of your favorite Czech authors? So I started telling her. She said, what are you doing this summer? And I said, I don't have many plans. And she said, how would you like to go to Prague? Well, in the 1990s, everyone was saying Prague was the Paris of the 90s. So Prague was on my wish list for years. So it was a great opportunity. So that was in 2013. And then I ran my first program in 2014.
Nice.
And then did my last one last summer. We had a couple of summers out because of COVID. Yeah. And then Dr. Hartnett, who is the chair of history, came to me a couple years ago and said, I'm thinking about starting a new history program in Amsterdam. Would you like to, join me? And I was ready for a new landscape. I loved Prague. I still love Prague. I will go back. It feels like a second home to me. The architecture, the people, the food, everything is just spectacular.
Yeah.
It's very affordable, unlike Western Europe, which sometimes you can get a sticker shock. But I'm looking forward to a new adventure in Amsterdam, and that's coming up in just a few weeks.
Yeah. Have you been to Amsterdam before?
Yes, for 48 hours.
Nice.
We did a trip last November.
Okay.
Landed on a Friday morning at 10 a.m. and boarded a plane Sunday at 10 a.m. to come home.
Nice.
And we got everything scouted out where the students are going to live, where we're going to have class, and it was just a beautiful, late fall weekend. The cafe scene is so vibrant there. The people on their bicycles, again, the architecture, the museums. It's going to be great.
Throughout your 10 years of leading the program in Prague, did you see any shifts of the culture there, or maybe any differences that you kind of noticed, like a trajectory throughout 10 years?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because I did notice it post-COVID. The Czech people, I always thought they were friendly. There's this myth that they're chilly and they're dismissive of tourists. They're really not. But at post-COVID, they got friendlier, because I think they were so happy to welcome the tourism dollars back into the economy, because the Czech Republic really got hit with COVID. So, and a lot of businesses, a lot of restaurants that I used to take the students to closed during COVID, but it's vibrant again. I mean, last summer it was thriving. The tourists are back, and our students always love that program, that city. Because it's also a great jumping off point for the students to go visit other places on the weekend. Right.
So what did that study abroad program focus on?
My class was literature and politics.
Okay.
And my counterpart would do communism and post-communism. Also revolutions, depended on who taught the other half of the course.
Yeah. So did any aspects of the course relate to maybe any landmarks or historical sites in the city of Prague?
Yeah, we would take the students to the astronomical clock. We had class. We used to have class in the Augustinian monastery, which is just stunning. Students loved that. We would take them to the site where the 1968 student revolution happened. The beautiful thing about Prague is that it still looks the way it did decades ago, century ago. The architecture was not destroyed during the wars. It was protected. So it's really the walking tours that we've taken over the years. Your students they're gobsmacked. Wow, everything's still here, and the churches are just phenomenal. There's so many beautiful churches. They call it the city of 1,000 spires. It's beautiful.
Has there been, overgoing for such a long period of time, has there ever been things that you keep finding? Like you find something new every time that you go?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I've been there X number of years, and I feel like I've just scratched the surface of everything that city has to offer, culturally, historically. Also, we would do day trips with the students as well, go to this beautiful little town called Český Krumlov. They call it the Disney Village. It's this adorable little castle with a stream, a river going through the middle of the city. We took the students to Kutná Hora, to the Bone Church, which is creepy and wonderful at the same time. We would do weekend excursions to Budapest, weekend excursions to Poland. We'd go to Auschwitz.
Wow.
Yeah, which was always, interestingly enough, for a lot of the students, when I'd ask them, why did you sign up for this particular 6-week study abroad program, they would say, my parents and I really were interested in the weekend at Auschwitz, because that's such a understandably intense and emotional and difficult weekend.
Right.
But being with a group of your peers makes it easier somehow.
Right.
We never did a lot of talking.
Right.
But it was, it's a very important place to visit.
Right. Oh, definitely.
So we never forget.
Right, definitely. Do you plan on doing any side travel like that? I know Poland isn't as close to Amsterdam as Prague is to, Poland. But do you maybe have any similar side travel excursions planned?
We have some specific Amsterdam sites. Obviously, we're going to go to the Anne Frank House.
Right.
We're going to go see the windmills in Harlem. We're going to go eat cheese in Gouda. Dr. Hartnett is taking students to The Hague. So yeah, there are a lot of good trips.
Yeah, definitely. Is there something that you're most looking forward to for this Amsterdam program?
The experience of the new, right? The unexpected.
Yeah.
Since I've never spent time there.
You had also mentioned that you've been to Italy. Can you tell me a little bit about why you were in Italy?
I went to Venice for Ernest Hemingway conference in 2014. Absolutely fell in love with it. It's my favorite city in the world.
Yeah.
It looks like a movie set. It just knocked me out. I was shocked at how emotional I felt every day in that city.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to go back.
Yeah. Why do you think it's important that students study abroad?
They need to see with new eyes. They need to experience a little bit of discomfort, and it's great for problem solving, right? One thing that students say time and again when we get back, they feel more confident. They feel more mature, because travel does it expands your world in really phenomenal ways, in ways that you have to have that pack on your back to fully feel it.
Right. Is there any place that is on your travel bucket list?
My friends are trying to get me interested in New Zealand, which I'm interested in.
Yeah.
I'm up for just about anything. I really am. The main concerns are safety and language, right? But I'd like to see Australia too. I've heard a lot of great things about Australia.
Yeah. Was there a particular I just thought of this because I know Australia is literally halfway across the world.
Yes.
And getting there is often a challenge.
Yep.
Was there any flight pattern that you'd taken on any of your travels that was a little bit crazy?
Just canceled or delayed flights.
Yeah.
That's the crazy part.
Right.
I mean, a long trip, an 8-hour flight's nothing. I can sleep on planes. I knock out very easily.
Nice.
The only disruption is the cancellations.
Yeah.
And that's another part of just rolling with it.
Right.
You can't do anything.
Right. Well, thank you, Professor Simmons. My last question for you is if you could give one word of advice to maybe any of our viewers are aspiring to become a seasoned traveler as yourself, what advice would you give them?
Start now. Right? Start while you're young, right? Because that's when you're most open to the world, I think, right? I have a great quote from Pico Iyer, the writer Pico Iyer. He says, "We travel initially to lose ourselves, and we travel next to find ourselves." We travel to open our hearts and eyes and learn more about the world than our newspapers will accommodate. We travel to bring what little we can in our ignorance and knowledge to those parts of the globe whose riches are differently dispersed. And we travel, in essence, to become young fools again, to slow time down and get taken in and fall in love once more.
That's beautiful. Is that your motto?
Every day.
Definitely. Well, that is awesome. Thank you so much, Professor Simmons, for being here and sharing all your abroad experiences. I loved hearing about it.
Thank you, Ava.
Thank you. I'm your host, Ava Petrosky. I'll see you next time.